That's right. You don't see a kitchen behind you. Viewers.
Well, this weekend was cool in that I've been planning on going out doing my first outdoor SE.
Oh, congratulations!
Ever. Oh yeah, thank you. So now I've got 2 year lights, and I've got everything sorted in the way of like my setup. Chosen a park. I still have to, I think, call the city to see if I can do it. Like if there are any issues with me setting up a table and doing something like that.
That's fair.
I reckon it should, like Finland is like, we're all about rules and regulations. So
sure.
I know enough that I have to call the city and say like, I'm going to be setting up a table, and just so that they know that it's.
So you're going for a table setup?
Sorry?
You're going for a table setup, or is it going to be like a hybrid of the two? What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking I would take the table setup, and I think the same day I'll probably try to do the without the table, just because I haven't done either. And I'm like a moving person. I like to move and jump around and like approach people. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, how is that?
I think so. I think what you should just be really open to is experimenting many different styles, many different ways of doing it, because there's no one right way to try SE. And I think whatever makes you more comfortable will enhance your ability to have conversations with people in a comfortable format.
And it's kind of interesting because on the one hand, I like the thing about sitting at the table and people come to me if they want to, like you've expressed that you're reading a book and then they just come and sit if they feel like it. And I like that as an idea, but I just know myself that I get really so curious and so excited. And so I might do some jumping around too and see how that works.
Alan, who's also now started his own channel in Spain, he mentioned that he's had trouble to get people to actually agree to be filmed. And he's got a standing setup. And I thought about it, and I think that if he goes to a seated setup, he might find it easier to get people who are actually comfortable with being filmed because they come to you. So they might feel more comfortable, or by default, you're kind of selecting the people who are open to this kind of thing rather than walking up to them. I think for my setup, it's probably better that I'm walking around because it's much more difficult to get somebody to stop and show interest than it is to actually get them to agree to be filmed for whatever weird reason.
I think there's potential for a hybrid setup where
reaching at the moment. He's in trying SE, and I'd love to see him get into some serious street epistemology. But yeah, it works very well. It's nice. It gives a good view of the conversation. I think it works very well.
Did I hear correctly? He's a street preacher?
Yeah. He joined the Street Epistemology study group, but the approach he has is he wants to teach people about the Bible. So he asks questions to understand what people believe. Specifically, he asks them, what do you think happens after we die? But it's not so much really trying to understand what they're doing. It seems to me that he's more interested in asking a question that leads the conversation in a specific way that allows him to preach a bit. So, yeah. I've been engaging with him to see if I can convince him to tweak his approach a bit. So I'm hopeful. It'll be very cool.
Keep up. And I do strongly believe that anybody could do SC regardless.
Set up a questionnaire, which I tried out this weekend. It was very fun. It's a bunch of questions that just kind of see how somebody's worldview works, how they form beliefs, view reality. And a couple of people, I just went through the questionnaire. They found it, well, it seemed to me at least that they were enjoying it. These 2 guys who I'm actually releasing a video about tomorrow really loved it. It worked very well with 2 people because they were bouncing their off of each other. And yeah, for the rest of the weekend, I decided to spend some quality time with my wife, which at this point in our lives means playing World of Warcraft.
Boo! One of the worst games. Good time, I guess. You play together on the same like laptop or like keyboard, or like are you on the same network?
No,
like how's that work? I was for my excellent weekend, I got to a thing where I'm trying to play some of the old school games that I never had a chance to play while I was growing up. And I'm playing Paper Mario and the 1,000-Year Door, and I got that game by trading another game to one of my coworkers. And so I'm finally able to play like these old school games that I never had the chance to. Oh, wow. I'm really digging it. There's a game that's coming up really soon called, yeah, it's a Steven Universe game, and the Steven Universe is like this cartoon series that's out in America, but or around the world really. But the video game for PC that's very similar to Paper Mario, and I'm playing this Paper Mario game just to get over the crux of how badly I want to play that PC game, which should be coming out possibly in the next 24 hours. There's been no official date. They just said August, so I'll keep my fingers crossed. Anyway, that's been my excellent weekend. I think we're all having a good time, but there's one thing that I love more than talking about ourselves, and I do love talking about ourselves so much. But that is listening to other people.
Was the name of. Could you say something about that before I read the comments?
Sure. So I did. Ben and I did a study session while we were missing you. You were sick, and we were saying, okay, let's see what we can pull together. So we got our Pokemon cards together and tried to do a quick little study session on a video that I did while I was at the ARC Encounter protest, which was, I think, about a month ago in northern Kentucky. There's a life-size built statue of the Ark, and we don't have an issue with so much the Ark itself, but more or less the hiring practices and the business practices by the company. They only hire very specific kinds of Christians. They actually will not hire like Jewish people or like people who are like Baptists or like people who are like not in their particular church, which is against the law here in the United States. But no one seems to have a particular issue. Like, you're not supposed to bias based on like religious background. Obviously, atheists wouldn't be hired there too. They have like a questionnaire. They also take out 2% of your paycheck to fund the museum. They came up with the reason why he did believe in a God, and he was using the argument from creation. And I said, hey, do you have a way of recognizing creation? Basically, he said no. So I'm like, then what's the argument for how we can validate or confirm if something is created or not? And he basically said, I don't know. And I was like, great. Here's like my cards.
I really liked that video, and I really loved that because in the beginning there you were kind of like talking about what an atheist is, and he had a different definition than yours, and I really loved the way that you were really like communicating and clarifying, and it was a really nice tone to the conversation that otherwise could like start with, I'm not what you're saying I am, and how dare you call me that, and that's not what I mean, you know? Like, right. But it was really good. So we've got the love, the feedback for that show. We've got Peter Buka, Tuhinga. Ta is the man. Booyah! His truthful brilliance at negotiating obstacles within the dialogue is, for me, awe-inspiring. A man.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
A man gifted with a brilliant intellect. Coupled.
All right.
I'm envious, to say the least.
I'm always blushing. I'm in a state of blush.
I heard that immediately. And Devin Dukes says, keep up the great work, guys.
Thanks, Devin.
And Christy Santiago writes, just had my 5th SE conversation. I've no gear yet, so I haven't been able to record, but I find that people are really willing to examine their beliefs with this method. I'm so excited about the future because of SE. I find all your vids so very helpful. Keep up this wonderful way of changing the world, one conversation at a time. I love that.
Wonderful. I love it.
Thanks, Christy. And we're so proud of you for going out and having chats with people. That's awesome.
Thank you so much for doing that. You're such a great person. It literally just takes one conversation at a time to change the world. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, welcome. Ngut 40.
Well, we got a lot of feedback. Holy, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Says, great stuff yet again. An idea, Kai. You left him with the question. This rock is creation. What are we doing in our heads to determine that that is a creation? Leaving the encounter with a question for them is a common thing in your videos. That's great. Could it be helpful for you to write out the question on the back of your card? It should only take a minute or two, but it would help them remember the crux of the conversation and how it led to pivoting question.
That's a good idea. I like it. Yeah, I can writing questions on the card and then handing that to the person. I think that's good. I'd also recommend when someone, a very ardent believer, does come in contact with you by email, I know what some of my limitations are, and it's that I'm not really good at SE over text, like over emails and stuff. It tends to get clouded a little bit, and people tend to be more unwilling to change their mind when like talking or conversing, because the tone of what I'm saying doesn't really like the right tones that they need to hear. We also have critique SE groups as well in our SE Facebook groups, and from there they'll be free to like engage in either the study of SE or like critiquing SE from their perspective as someone who's recently met a SE enthusiast, or even like just like having an opportunity to learn more about it, because we also have a learn SE function there too. And like I said, it's good for everybody. But I think that's like a good resource to recommend them to, more so than continuing to probe them.
I think it's really good that we listen to ourselves also, like how much SE we can do, and if we're overloaded, that we respectfully decline to engage.
And we'll put a link to the SE Facebook groups in the description of this video for anyone who wants to check that out. For the preview of today's shows, we're going to go over one of Ben's videos. He talked with an awesome lady named Jenny. I swear everyone from South Africa is like a model of some sort, straight out of a Gap magazine. But I'm really excited to see the card in play. Everyone's playing from the same level, same score, and the bit today is colors. And the way how the game goes is we try to sneak in colors into the top. The person who does it the most without getting caught gets the most points. And at the end,
it was a very interesting talk for me because she's a Catholic, and Catholicism is really kind of a minority in South Africa. We're similar to America, where most people here are Protestant because we were fleeing from Europe and its terrible Inquisition and all that. And it was a very nice talk. The one thing that I was worried about at the end of the talk is I felt that she didn't really enjoy it. So that's why I thought this might be a good clip to get your guys' feedback on, to see where I might have gone wrong and kind of lost her in the talk. So yeah, let's jump into it.
All right, starting now.
Cool. Being a bit finicky. Cool.
We got to see Ben's face, by the way, just popping that out. That was just a rare moment. So great.
Jenny. Yeah. Very nice to meet you, Jenny. Would you mind if we just maybe stand over here? I want to try not to catch too much of the traffic noise. That's J-E-I-E. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Are you writing now?
I'm going to write it off first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Time.
How's it been going?
Good, actually.
Okay. Awesome. What are you studying?
BSc Biology.
Very cool.
No.
Not.
It's not good. It's fun, but yeah.
Okay. Is it something you're very interested in?
Still adapting to everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's can be very stressful.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So, what belief would you like to talk about?
Like, well, I am Catholic Christian.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Cool. Catholic Christian. I'd like to get it to kind of a truth claim.
Yeah.
Something about reality. So what would be a fair summation of a truth claim in Catholic Christianity?
Oh, geez, I'm not sure actually. Like,
an easy one might be God exists. One might be God exists.
oh,
Prayer works.
Yeah, God exists. And
Okay.
I know, like most Catholic churches has this. We pray through saints.
Mhm.
With ours, I don't think like the priest is really that into it. Like,
Okay.
Like really, it's like basically it's like asking. He explained it like you can just ask like your friend or whatever to pray for you as well. As
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that's or that idea. People really have that wrong usually. So but yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's very interesting.
Yeah, God exists.
Cool. So the Christian God exists. Awesome. Can you just tell me a bit about what this belief means to you? What your kind of definition of God is?
Okay, so my definition of God is like they say He lives in all of us.
Okay.
So He is true. I really feel like He's here all the time.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're thinking. Even if you're feeling like lost, He doesn't love me anymore and all of that.
Okay.
Like that happens to everyone. So even through those times, and if you get back on your feet and you're like, oh, this isn't actually that, like you'll realize, but He did this for me and He helped me with this and He got me through this, and like afterwards, like, why did I even doubt it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
If you had to rate your confidence on whether this is the truth on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 would be, you're not sure of this at all, you've just got questions, and 100 would be, you're all confidence, no questions on whether this is the truth.
Okay, so I would say like 90%.
90, okay.
I think most of us like doubt sometimes.
Okay.
And then that's when I feel he's like, well, don't doubt me. Like, you'll be on your knees for doubting me. And then when you get back up and he just shows you this amazing world and amazing things. So yeah, I feel like believing, like keeping the belief is really important.
Okay, keeping the belief is really important.
Mind if we stop right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Just one quick note. She said she was a 95 on the scale, and I like the casual clarification of what you meant, what she meant by 95. It's more of just a question of like, so what did that 95 mean to you? Does she know where the boundaries of the 0 to 100 is? Does she know like what 100% represents and what a 0% represents?
Yeah. It's really a question that I try to ask every time nowadays, because I've found exactly that people see it as almost a binary sometimes, and somebody might say 80%, but they really see it as they don't have any doubts. They might just have questions about how God works or something like that. So clarifying that is very useful. I've actually thought about doing the Ferrari experiment, if it doesn't take too long, just to give them a better idea of a probabilistic approach.
One thing that I dislike about the Ferrari experiment is that it takes a long time to go through. It's a long thought experiment, and I tend to only use it when I have to use it, if I use it at all. It's hard to deal with like the eyepiece thinking at the time with the scale that hasn't really been
calibrated.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so normally whenever I give that kind of a scale 0 to 100, I'd be like, where 0 is like, you just don't blah, 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 blah. Where 100 is like, I'm absolutely correct. There's no way I could be wrong. Where do you think you are on that? And that tends to like be the, just kind of like a helpful calibration. And then even if they say they're 100 still, follow up with like more questions like, so you're 100, you're absolutely sure, you don't need any evidence, you stopped asking questions. Yes. Okay, cool. Just making sure that we both are on terms of what we mean by 100. And then as the conversation continues, it'd be a good way to like just revisit that number.
For me, it was a bit unclear what she was 95% sure about.
How so?
She said several things in the beginning there. For me, it was kind of like I wasn't sure what she was 95% sure that she had this faith for God, or that this God exists. Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't really catch that. Yeah. We narrowed it down to God exists, and I think that's what I wrote on the board. So I'm not sure if maybe she might have gone a bit past that. Something which I picked up, and I'd love to see if I get it back into this conversation. I really watched this video lately, but she dropped two very interesting statements or threads already. She said that sometimes she doubts, and sometimes she feels like God isn't there, and later on there's this correcting mechanism that gets her back to a point where she says, why did I ever think that? And the scale should, if I had to do this talk again, I wouldn't have gone with the scale now, because I think I lost that thread going forward in the conversation.
I don't think you ever lose anything. I mean, it's always willing to like take a couple of steps back. If anything, it's cool that you recognize that there was just multiple paths to get to your goals, and that, how do I put it? In a conversation, you're always sacrificing many more routes that you can go on as a consequence of choosing one of the routes that you do want to go on. And you never know what's going to happen at the end. And that's what makes the whole thing fun. So just keep going with it. I think you were doing great. One other weird thing. So you moved slightly at the start of the conversation. What was the direction of the traffic? This might be a little bit of like a weird, obscure thing to ask, but you're saying like there was bad traffic when you had your back to it, but when your face is to it, it's not bad anymore?
Yeah, this is a weird little street. So there's a very busy street right towards my back. So there's a street running parallel to us, down to a street corner, which is very busy. So this is kind of a little right in front of her, right behind her. There's a gate that goes into the university itself, which is much less traveled.
So you're using your body as a way to muffle audio? Is that accurate?
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
That's so sharp. Truthfully, I wouldn't have come up with something like that myself. Okay, great job, man. All right, so we're ready to keep going?
Yeah.
Cool. So, what convinces you most that the God exists?
Well, that's like I've experienced. I wouldn't call it a miracle, but times you can actually realize, wow, he actually saved me there, and he actually looked after me. Or like, let's say I was crossing the road, and just right after I crossed the road, someone's in an accident. Like, he protected me from that. It could have been me. Like situations where you're like, wow, it just happened a split second after I got out of the way.
Yeah.
And that definitely is to me like unprotected.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you never had experiences like that in your life, where you were in danger potentially, or you had this slight miss where something bad could have happened but it didn't, do you think you would still have held the belief as strong as you do?
Yeah, I think so. Like I've grown up in a Christian family, Christian house all my life.
Okay.
So I think it would, and you get the stories, even if it didn't happen to me personally, you like hear the stories. And, like, you wouldn't believe your mom if she tells you something. Like you really have to think really otherwise to not believe your mom. So
yeah. Okay. So the fact that your mom told you some of these stories, that you is a very convincing part of the belief.
Of course, yeah. And church as well. Like I realized if I don't go to church on a Sunday, like the following week would be just like everything will go wrong. And then if you go to church, like, okay, it's fine, life's okay, I can do this. Yeah. Like I think it just really lifts your spirits and it gives you motivation for the week. So I think that really helps.
Yeah. You mentioned a bunch of different reasons now. If we had to go and like chart them out and say, Jenny, which of these is to you the core of this belief, the pillar on which all of the rest kind of stand? What would you say is that the part of the belief for you?
Well, like keeping the faith.
Okay.
Just keep believing, keep staying positive. Like I know there's been actual like scientific research between positive and
Can we break the video here for a second?
Believing in a God.
Because there's so much, I'm just afraid I'm going to. Because and this much, I'm just afraid I'm going to. This is just the one point where I was like, I don't know if you guys are talking about the same thing anymore, and I'm going to kind of repeat what I said in the beginning. I don't know if she's answering the questions of how she knows that God is true. I think she's still talking about the pillars for her faith.
Right.
It's something which I've seen a lot coming up a lot in criticism of ACE, where people say, listen, faith isn't a method to get to truth. Faith is a reaction to evidence. So it's basically trust that you get when there is evidence for some belief. And some of the questions, if you're not familiar with AC, sound weird, like asking somebody if they never had this experience, would they still have the belief? It's not to kind of say, oh, this is a stupid experience, it shouldn't mean anything. It's more a situation of where you want to see, is this actually, you gave it as a reason, but does it really affect your confidence? So the idea there is to say, to kind of take a shortcut to say, rather than trying to unpack this reason that you just gave to see if it has an effect. But yeah, so you think she's more talking about the faith and not really, do you think it's fair to still think that she uses faith to convince herself that God exists, Linda?
I don't think she's talking in that way. I don't hear it like that.
Okay.
I think she's talking about why her faith is real, what her faith kind of like is. And I also wanted to say about the example that she gives about, if I understand the whole taking a shortcut thing, like getting to what the real reason for her being convinced that God is true, but I kind of like don't think you're on that road at all. That's why I think this is kind of like you're missing each other, and of course I could be wrong, but just with the example, and also that you believe your mum. She said that too, that you would always believe your mum. So what I kind of was like, why not use those examples without like negating the examples entirely to make the shortcut, but to use them like, well, if you would have gotten hit by the car, would that then mean that God didn't exist? And kind of repeat the whole existing thing, the question that you're asking. And then like, has your mum ever told you things and then it was shown that she was mistaken about something that she thought was true? Like, is that possible? Kind of like use the examples in a way where we're clarifying the question even more.
So
while digging.
Previously, I've started to avoid that purposefully. The reason why I do that is it puts, or I've found that sometimes it puts a negative spin on the conversation. It's like somebody gives a reason, and you're like, oh, but what if this happened? And it's completely the opposite. So to me, it seems as if it pushes a very combative attitude that person might feel like you're trying to tear down each of these reasons, which isn't really what I'm trying to do. So I thought that saying, does this really affect your confidence is almost a more polite way to ask it, but I might be wrong.
Could I make a point? Instead of going directly into the questions, could you frame the next couple of questions?
Challenge what you believe, just to frame the conversation a bit better, because I think you're exactly right.
And you could also say, oh, go for it, Linda.
So wondering, are you intentionally avoiding the word true in this also? I keep on going like, oh, why doesn't Ben just say like, how does the thing that the faith gives you is positive and gives you motivation, how does that relate to it being true or not?
No.
Like the whole that we're looking for.
Yeah, I don't think I
you believe this.
avoided the word true now.
Yeah. Okay.
Good point.
And then a more casual way of saying, can I gently challenge, could just be ask some questions that just...
Hard to be positive, but it works. It really does.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Especially in your first year. Okay.
Yeah.
So faith is a very interesting word to me.
Yeah.
Because to different people, it might have different meanings.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your definition of faith?
Keep believing.
Okay.
Just keep trusting in God. Just trust that even if this doesn't feel like this is going to be happening, this should be happening. Just trust that He has got a plan. This is happening for a reason. Just keep trusting Him.
Okay. Yeah. So would it be fair to kind of call it trust?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, trust.
Okay. This trust is a mechanism which you use to conclude, to hold that high confidence as the belief. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how kind of does that work? Can somebody trust in something and it not be true?
I suppose so. Like, take a person, for instance. A lot of people go out and just trust in people. And they've got this, so friendly and charming and all of that. But behind the scenes, like, they're stabbing you with that.
Okay.
So that does happen. But, like, I don't feel like that would be happening with God.
Okay. What convinces you that is not the case with God?
That is not the case of God. Well, in the Bible it says He's a forgiving God.
Okay.
Like, He will punish you, but not because like, oh, I want to punish you, it's so fun. It's because you have to learn through experiences and realize, okay, this is what I'm here for, or this is what I have to do with my life, or this is why I exist. Yeah.
Okay, so the Bible has got in a picture, or in a way where you can't see that He would be that person who doesn't deserve the trust necessarily.
And it also, I think it depends on how you as a person interpret the Bible. There are so many different interpretations. Like, I feel like it depends from person to person.
Okay. Your interpretation of this, that kind of gets you to the point where you say, cool, I can trust in God. How did you come to that interpretation?
Well, as I said, I've experienced it.
Okay.
Like, I know He saved me, and I know He's protected me. Like, I think without God, I wouldn't be able to study because we don't have the finances to study. And just right before I got accepted and whatever, my mom inherited enough money to sustain me for 2 years.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, wow, this is cool. I'm supposed to be here. Like, I have to work hard. I have to be doing this.
Okay. So the personal experience, you know, for example, and thank you for sharing that. It's very nice. I'm really glad you can be here. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. So many people don't have that.
Yeah, I'm actually helping the lady who works for us, helping her daughter out as well to go to university, and it's just, yeah, it's if you think about what that kind of opened the doors it opens up for you in life, it's amazing. You can really change your entire life by being here.
And other people's lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah.
Can I make a quick point?
Yeah.
I love that you took a break from the questioning just to like make some remarks that aren't necessarily related to like her faith. Just like have a moment to just take a breath. It really helps out. And I can see some really great positive body language on our part from just the aspect that you're having more of a conversation than and less of an interrogation. Like she's really responding well to that. And I think it's really important for other people who are like going out there and doing SC, like these breaks that you take in conversations where you just take a moment to reflect and maybe offer some personal story about you, tangents on the side, jokes, whatever. It's really, really good to just break up the conversation and make it sound like more of a natural conversation that you could actually have if you didn't have cameras or if you didn't have like a GoPro on your shoulder and you want to talk with your friend and they might take a tangent, but you can go on that tangent with them and then eventually maybe get back to the more important topics at hand. But at least both of you guys are more relaxed because you know that it's not a strict questioning session.
I also like the break, and I actually would have my feedback here would have been from the beginning to this point to have more of the breaks and more of the repeating what she's saying so that she feels heard, and maybe with more of that, you did do some, but with more of that, maybe some of the confusion that I think is the problem with this conversation, like why it's not like super great, is I think you're kind of like talking, you're not meeting each other. And one example that I at least hear, and I would love to hear what you guys think, is that she is describing, and you even say this in your question, you say trust in God. And I think she is describing her trust in God and her like trials and tribulations with that, or that, but not about the trust, that how you use trust to conclude that God is real or exists. She's still talking about how she can trust God. Is God trustworthy or not? And not is trust a trustworthy or reliable method to conclude that something exists.
Exactly. I think the question is, how do you transition from where you're at right now to asking how faith is a reliable way to come to a true conclusion? And like taking these reprieves in the conversations are also a good chance for you to think about, like, where am I at this conversation? Where's my goal? How can I get there? Okay, let's try this again from now that we've taken a couple steps back. Let's see if we can make a more optimized line of reasoning to the thing that I'm trying to show to my interview partner.
Yeah. What are you laughing at, Ty? You guys are giving such good feedback. I don't even know what to say.
He's a real fandango of us. Check it out. Okay. All right. Next. You ready to go back into it?
Yeah.
All right. Also note that we are still competing to try to sneak in colors.
I don't want impossible.
I just said fandango. No one called it. I got another point.
I have no.
I didn't even know that's a color, dude.
Idea that fandango is a color. Exactly, Ben.
So what it's like when you're doing SC with people and they tend to like when questions, they can like even sigh or groan and everything like that. You know that, right?
Can't we just wipe the slate clean and say we start now?
No, because I just got another point right now. I just said grön, which is Swedish for
That
green.
is not a color. No.
Swedish green
There's
is grön.
no Swedish being mixed in here.
Oh, so we can use different languages now.
What you want to get in on this? Get in on this. Oh, Ben just got in. He snuck in. Ben just got in.
Yeah.
Linda, you're officially at the last. You got in with Slate. We'll cover the score over a while. But anyway, guys, listen up. This is both a game as well as a show. I'm crushing it on the scorecard right now. Linda, you need to get on the board. You can use any language you want. You can use any fancy colors you want, but you gotta get in there because we're cutthroat. All right. Anyway, you ready? Here we go. Rest of the video.
Cool.
If we had a guy walk up to us and he's from a completely different
Oh, my bad. Sorry about that.
religion. Maybe he believes in the Greek gods. He believes in Zeus or whatever.
Yeah.
And somebody who's completely impartial, they might not have been raised in a specific religion, and they listen to the two of you, and they're interested in finding the true God to follow.
Yeah.
If that person, then the guy who believes in Zeus, also uses faith, so trust, to conclude that the God is real.
Yeah.
How would the person who's impartial figure out which one is true?
Okay, so I watched a video as well, a documentary about this guy. I think he went into like 27 different religions.
Okay.
And he said the basis is all the same. Like all of them believe in a higher force.
Okay.
And maybe just all of them have a different name for the same person. Like I couldn't judge anyone or force him to be what I want him to be or what I am. Like that's entirely his choice. But maybe like we've got it all wrong. Like maybe all of these different religions are all actually praying to the same person. They just have different names.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
How convincing was that documentary to you, just for interest's sake?
Well, I think like feeling that person feeling to have to jump between all the religions, he must have been really lost in himself and then realized, but the basis is all the same. Everything has got the same grounds. Everyone's basic foundation is built on the same things. So what? This is not so bad actually.
Okay. Do you think that's an accurate summation of world religions?
No, like there are many, like, I mean, there are people who like just don't believe in God, like that's nonsense, like just don't even talk to me about it, and people who think the devil is their God, and you know, like stuff like that happens. So not all religions, and I definitely feel like religions praying to things, like an actual thing that's on earth.
Okay.
I don't think that could come to the same principle.
Okay.
Because in the Bible it says as well, you shouldn't pray to any other gods, and that includes people, money, lust, all of that. Like people make religions out of that without realizing it. Yeah.
Okay. That's so to you, it's possible that might actually be true, that there's this one God, and that you might have a specific interpretation of him, which might not be that accurate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we wouldn't know. Like, how do you know? For sure?
That is the question.
Yeah.
How would you go about trying to find out?
Just wait. Just wait and keep trusting. Like that's.
What do you mean with you just wait?
Just wait and see. Like you're not gonna realize it while you're still on Earth. Like no one's gonna figure that out.
Okay.
Unless God actually comes to you and says, "Listen, this is me. This is who I am," and then comes it out and what if this is a false prophet? There's been so many of those.
So while we're still on Earth, there's, if I hear you correctly, while we're still on Earth, there's not really a way.
I wouldn't think so, no. Because I think like just live the best life you can be. You can live. Don't like lie and steal and do things that in other people's eyes are also inhumane. Like just be honest, be a good person, help people. I feel like even if you don't believe in God and heaven is where you're gonna go, then if you've been a good person throughout your life, like he would still be like, oh, you haven't done anything really wrong. So
I might be wrong, but to me it's a lot of the religions seem to not be exactly on the same page.
Yeah.
In terms of that there are other factors which come in rather than just good deeds, which will lead to You're being rewarded. So, do you think it's important to try and find the truth about these God claims?
Well, I would think so. Like, I think it would make religion easier. Yeah, definitely.
If we can't figure it out well, there's no way for us to figure it out before we're dead. Can we ever say that we're justified to have a high confidence?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
For me, being a person who's experienced it, I definitely have a high confidence in God. So.
Okay. So the experience justifies the high confidence.
Yeah.
And if we go back to the guy who believes in Zeus, and I mean he prays and he sees these things happen in his life, which really just makes him conclude, you know, my personal experience is this is real, this is working for me.
Yeah.
Could he also be at 90% in this belief based on that?
Yeah, as I say, it depends on person. We cannot force anyone to follow any kind of religion.
Absolutely. And I'm one of those guys.
Be a bad person. That's all I'm saying. Just don't be a bad person.
I completely agree with you. To me, it's everybody has the right to believe in exactly what they want to. And
can we maybe break you again with everybody has the right to believe what they want to, just because I wrote down so much. Because I still think you're kind of like talking past each other. And I thought that maybe like I kept on feeling like, just say it, Ben, just repeat the real question. Like, say it, like, if we cannot know if God is real, instead of the whole, if we cannot, you know, what was it? If we don't know if we have the right interpretation and things like that. I was thinking that you guys were now talking about who's got the right interpretation. Well, she's saying that everybody's got different interpretations, but it's still the same thing. She's still saying that it's the one same God, but then I think you're starting to question again the interpretation.
It's something which I also found very annoying. It's almost like I didn't want to immediately go for there is no God. My approach was more like let somebody just question whether they found the truth about their God. It's almost like this grade of not incredulity but grade of doubt. So first maybe just doubt that you've got the true actual God, then you can start looking deeper into whether the God exists. So yeah, I don't think that's a very good approach.
Could I make
thinking like what's the difference, what variety it has, if we're trying to determine if something is real or not, exists or not, true or not, then the variety isn't like Bet-tie.
Sure. I would say the point that I would make
diverged and went to the whole thing of she's talking about the religion, not about her personal belief and what she believes is true or not.
Good points. Good catch. Yeah, that's all I got. We got 2 more minutes left in the vid. You want to knock them out?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Wrong about whether Zeus exists.
Well, he could be wrong. We could be wrong.
Okay.
Like everyone could be wrong. So.
Well, there's no way of figuring out until he's dead that he's wrong.
No.
Okay. So, if he can be wrong, and there's no way that he can figure out now that he can be wrong, is 90% the place where he should be?
If he feels so, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay. Last question. If he is at the 90%, 90% maybe, it can mean different things to different people. And is way up there as in, I'm very confident that this is true. Okay. Can that 90% make him kind of overlook things which are counter to this belief which he has arrived at?
It depends on how open-minded he is.
Okay.
I think. It all depends on the person. Like some people are like just got eye caps on and don't want to hear anything else.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just depends on how open-minded he is and what he's willing to take in and like himself. Okay, what's happening.
Okay. And those personal experiences that he has are going to probably be very formative in that process.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, Jenny. Thanks. That was a very cool conversation.
Thanks.
Yeah. What did you think about the conversation?
Oh, well, that was interesting. It was
Okay.
fun. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Let me give you a card. So if you'd ever like to chat again, I'd be more than happy to.
Thanks.
There's my email address at the front.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Enjoy
Cool.
the day.
You too. Thanks. Bye, Jenny.
But I do think you ended it on a nice note. I don't think it was too like.
I think
Yeah,
You said that you didn't think the thing was good at the end.
I
Of course you
I
were
got
there.
so that impression was really from how I felt ending that conversation.
Mm.
To me, it seemed as if she was closing up towards the end.
it happened at about what was the timestamp? 1535, when she started to admit that everything could be wrong, anyone could be wrong. I could start. So it's not a bad sign of recognition, or it's not a bad recognition on her part.
You know, if there isn't a way that you can figure, or can this 90% stop you from looking at evidence which might be contrary to have made it more specific to her than going to the third party?
I think once she restated that she'd be 95%, even if, someone isn't justified in actually being correct, like someone could be wrong and still be justified at 95%, that's when I would throw out the scale and try a different thing altogether. Because that seems more of like she's digging her position and not willing to drop it. And I think the better question might have been at that point, and I think you did an incredible job, but it would have been interesting what she would answer if you asked her, what would get you in a higher confidence then, if you think you're confident, and then follow that up with what would take you down not from like completely down to 0%, but like you said you're 90, what would get you to like an 89% hypothetically. But I'd follow it up before I'd set it up with what would take you higher first before we go into what takes you down. That way, at least she now has a criteria of what it would take for her to change her confidence, and then that'd be a nice way to leave.
And I'm suspecting that could have also clarified some of the miscommunication that I'm suspecting happened here. I think she would have answered something like, well, if she would be stronger, if her faith would be stronger, she could get to the 100. I'm still thinking she at the end is like, the reason she's justified is because everybody is justified to believe whatever they want to. You're still talking about that thing and not, are we justified to believe that things are true if we don't have reliable methods for determining that they are true?
I think we go for it. One more thing.
Yeah, it's really a language barrier, I think, as well. Because in South Africa, I found that people immediately associate belief. Oh, it's not just South Africa. You see it in a lot of the other SE videos as well. But belief is something that you do to conclude a God exists. People don't see as beliefs as a way that they view the world in general. So yeah, it's something where I'm wondering if I should completely stop using the word believe and rather talk about do you think, to get it to a more general state. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of words you should be able to use. I have this really cool screenshot that I paused completely by coincidence. I think it's kind of a cool thing that a lot of people don't normally see. It's the board that an SEer uses to keep notes on. Can you see the screen right now?
Yeah.
It has some of the notes that you took. I think there's some interesting things on this. Like, one, you didn't start the timer, though you had the timer. Can you explain your philosophy behind this? I actually like your perspective on it.
So what I found with the timer is, having the timer is very cool, because if somebody says they don't have that much time, you can ask them, let's maybe put a timer for 5 minutes. You've commit to 5 minutes only. I've got my out. But I also found that it put pressure on me. I felt like I said I'll take 5 minutes, so I don't dare take more than 5 minutes. And it really rushed the conversation. We didn't get this moments like we had where we just talk a bit. So I decided, unless somebody specifically says they want to have it timed, I don't time it. But it does lend that air of credibility to You know, look at this guy. He's got a board and a timer. This is serious.
Right. I've actually started my conversations with the 5-minute hourglass. I won't flip it at all in the conversation. It's just there on the table. And whenever the person's done talking, that's when whenever they're ready to get up and go, that's when I'm ready to, you know, say, hey, thank you very much for the conversation. But the timepiece is there specifically just to let you know, hey, as a sign, if you really want to time this, I'm willing to flip it over and I won't waste any more of your time than that. From your advice, I've started doing that. I also noticed that there's a lot of notes on this board. Are you actively keeping notes as you talk? What I used my board for is just a sign of, hey, what you're saying is important to me. And I might scribble down like the first couple of things, or if I need to like pause them or slow them down just a little bit, if they're like giving me like a preach, looking away from them and writing down on a piece of paper is a good way for them to like slow down on their right, because it shows that, hey, what you're saying is important. But your tempo may be a little bit too fast for me. Can you slow it down so I can keep up? Now that we slow down, can I interject some questions real quick? Like I'll use it in those kinds of capacities too. How do you feel?
So I don't use it as much as I should. Like here, I missed something very important. I missed the doubts that she spoke about at the very start of the conversation. So sometimes if I'm really lost, I look down at the board and pick something up, which is interesting. What I've also found is it gives your IL something that they can look at to see that you're actually following what they're saying. So they look down and they see, oh yeah, that's what I said. Also gives them that bit of confidence, almost like reflecting without having necessarily to say it, that you're listening to what they're saying and picking up on what they're saying. Okay,
cool. Any comments? We're at an hour now.
I really liked this talk because it gave me so much critique to give. Thank you for that.
I think you still asked her the quick questions. That's the change in the body language. And maybe if you had more time, you'd be able to like help her get over that uncomfortableness of it. But overall, I think you did a great job, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah. How about we close the show? Linda, do you have any last Hail Marys that you want to throw in?
I'm so red in the face.
Linda's really rusty at this, so we should get her in do it more often.
Okay, cool. Let's open up the vault. Opening up the vault! The top of the show, after we close the vault. It's hard to tell what the IP is thinking.
Neither of you know.
Hey, you can throw out those words. That was for you. Linda, that was for you. Ben, what would you like to do? Shamelessly plug yourself or recommended video?
I'll shamelessly plug myself for once.
Nice. Linda, what video would you like to recommend?
What did I watch that last? Oh my gosh. I don't know.
What's your bunch of videos behind you too on that wall? What's your favorite movie on that? That's wonderful movie. You'll cry and laugh. It's a great movie. Ben, shamelessly plug yourself. Go for it.
Shamelessly plug. Cool. So you can follow me on BenDiesel_SE on Twitter. I'm sitting at 82 followers. Super proud. And my YouTube channel is Seeds of Thought SE.
Cool.
Yay.
And my final word is there's a guy named Dan Eagle. He's starting a SE show in Austin, Texas, alongside the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathens. He's looking for a name for his show. My idea for the show's name is Squirtle for Life. Squirtle for Life is my recommendation for it. And we'll close on the show with our catchphrase, I am both rubber and glue. And on 3, 2, 1, I am both rubber
and glue.
See you next time.